Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hey, everybody. It is so good to see you. Hopefully, you guys can hear me. Let me know if there's any issues, technical problems, things like that. I want to show you guys something here. All right. Sounds good to me. All right. Cool. Check this out. Let's see if we can see this. You see that? Feels like -6. Texas got cold, man. Holy cow. It is really cold outside. And for this Arizona boy, it's like, dang, man, I ain't got enough sweaters for this nonsense. Holy cow, man. All right. Well, let's go ahead and kind of ease into this. I don't want to rush anything. I've been thinking about this particular topic for a while now, and I want to do a good job at it. And let me just say right out of the gate, trying to unpack everything that I want to unpack in a live stream with this is it's not going to do it justice. So I think what I will do is compile a video where I can really take my time and express everything well. And that will come out eventually. And then I'll rehash all of this and I'll add to it. And I think that'll be a little bit more helpful, right? So I will be able to hopefully get to some questions. This isn't going to be like the typical, live stream Q&A or anything like that. We're going to be discussing something that is near and dear to my heart, and I've been thinking about it for quite some time. And I'm sure that for some folks, that as soon as they see that thumbnail and they see the title, they're like, ah, man, I don't want to watch like a negative video. I don't need the negativity. There's enough negativity in this world. I don't need that in my life. The truth is, this is actually the opposite of that. And I'm going to do my best to steer it in a more positive direction. And the goal and the purpose of this video and this live stream and this topic is to ultimately help anyone that watches my videos understand where I'm coming from, and more important, understand why I do what I do and what it is that I'm trying to accomplish we're going to use a speaker review as the shining example throughout this live stream. So what is it that I'm trying to do when I am talking about a loudspeaker and I'm reviewing a loudspeaker? What is it? What is my goal here? Do I have an agenda? What's the deal? So that's what we're going to be discussing. And I wanted to, in order to move forward, we kind of have to move back. We have to take a look at, well, how did how did I how did I get started in all of this? Like, how did I actually start with this? And the truth is that I just simply wanted to share an experience and share my joy of hi-fi. That's it. Like that beginning and end. When I sat down for the very first time and I published my very first, video talking about the Rogue Audio Cronus, the OG Cronus, I just loved the way that it sounded. And I've always been obsessed with sound. I've always been interested in sound. And I just wanted to share what I love about it. And that's it. There was nothing that was technical. There was no deep dive into even the functionality. It was just, I really enjoy the way this thing sounds. And I want to try my best to communicate how it sounds. Now, my videos for a very long period of time, for a number of years, were 100% subjective. There was really no data at all. And I really wanted to focus on, I got some notes here. So that's the reason why I keep looking on here, just to make sure that I'm staying on track here. I felt that I felt that based on the climate of the audio industry and where things were at as I got started and I started taking the channel a little bit more serious, I felt like there needed to be a change. I felt as if anybody, at least at my age at that time, I was in my late 20s, early 30s. Um, I felt as if none of my friends, nobody that I knew that was my age that was coming over to hang out would ever pick up a stereophile magazine, would ever pick up an Absolute Sound magazine, would ever, read a blog about some high-end product. And so I felt as if maybe getting on YouTube and telling a story in an interesting way and trying my best to make it as entertaining as possible might open the door to casting a wider net to where more folks that have never experienced hi-fi, they don't know what this is all about, might actually it might capture their, interest. And that that was ultimately my primary goal when I got started. And of course, for, many years, I tried to refine that craft and I tried to get better at it. There was a lot of that was, storytelling. And so the way that would work is I would spend time with the product. I would listen to it. I'd put it through its paces, and then I would put pen to paper, and I would write out essentially this script, telling this story in an entertaining or interesting way, or what I thought was an interesting way, and I would publish the video, and off it goes. Right. That was the format for a very long time, and so as I continued to make videos like that and do videos like that, there was a tipping point, and there was a moment in time moving forward where I got in a product, okay, and I went to work with this particular product, and I hit a snag. I hit a snag with this particular product, and I was having a hard time communicating or trying to narrate or write down what it was that I was hearing, or in this case, wasn't hearing, and I was confused by it. I didn't quite understand it. Ultimately, something with this particular speaker didn't sound correct. It didn't sound right. This was a long, long time ago, and it doesn't matter what brand it is. I'm not going to turn this into like a negative type thing. So, what I will tell you is that I have always kind of held strong to a policy, a loose policy, that I don't reach out to the manufacturer. I don't check in. I don't, share my thoughts. I don't converse with them about my findings. I get the product, and then I do the review, and then I publish the review. And in this particular situation, with this speaker, because of this snag that I hit, I felt that it was my responsibility to let them know, like, okay, things have been pretty hunky dory up until this point. It's been good up until this point, and now I have your speaker, and there's something about this that I can't quite wrap my head around. Something is off. And so I made what I would now consider a mistake. I've learned a lot over the years. This was a long time ago. Um, to send them a preview of the video. So I was like, I think they need to see this. And the video was narrated in kind of a dramatic way. I had a lot of fun with it. And I tried my best not to make it super negative, but without a doubt, there was the notion in the video of something is wrong with this speaker, and I don't know what it is. I don't understand what the hell's going on here. And in the video, I tried to, with speaker positioning, make the most out of the speaker and get the best out of the speaker. And the manufacturer freaked out. They freaked out. They called me, and it was like a conference call with the owner of the company, as well as another person that worked for the company, and it there was a lot of like berating and talking down to me, like I'm an idiot or I don't know what I'm talking about. And this particular speaker has won a million awards, and it's the greatest thing ever. And don't you dare publish this video. Like, you're crazy. Like, you've got this wrong. And so this this pivot, this moment in time changed everything for me, because what it did is it made me realize, like, okay, this isn't all sunshine and rainbows. And now I'm being talked down to. I was given this product with the idea that I get to share my opinion, my subjective opinion. I don't have any way of backing it up or anything. I'm just saying this is what I'm hearing and this is what I'm not hearing, and that's that. And now I have a manufacturer that's saying, don't you dare publish that video. Like, don't you dare do that. And I made a genuine, honest mistake at that time, and I regret it to this day, of altering and changing the video to soften the blow. The gist was still there. Like, you could still get a sense of like, okay, I don't know if he really likes this particular speaker. I'm not really sure, but I compromised. I compromised, and I wasn't true to myself. I should have just published the dang video and tell him, "Kick rocks, I don't care." But I didn't. I felt the pressure from them, and then I altered and I changed the video. And that video is still out there, and it doesn't matter what it is, but the point of this is, after that happened, I stopped dead in my tracks, and I thought, I need to do more than expressing how something sounds. I, as a reviewer, I need to understand why. Now, that's two different things. Like, I can communicate, this is how it sounds, or this is how I think that it sounds. But I felt that it was now my responsibility to gather the tools required for my own education, my own understanding. If this was to ever happen again, why does it sound that way? What's going on? And that was the shift point. That was the change of, I now need to start looking into measurements. And so that is what I did. That's exactly what I did. Is I went out and I bought what's called a Clio Pocket. It's a measurement device. It's about $600, and it comes with a little unit. I think I have it right here. I do. This is a Clio Pocket. Tiny little thing, plugs into your computer. It's got a single-ended input and output, and it comes with a microphone, calibrated microphone, and then now you can do measurements. You can do in-room measurements, and you can also do gated measurements, and you can do impedance sweeps and all of these things. And it came with a learning curve, and so I started practicing with it and learning and trying to understand measurements. I'm going to pause right now. I'm going to at least notice the chat. Let's just do a quick breather. I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything super important, and then we'll continue. All right. So let me drink some of my. This video is sponsored by Mud Water. It's not. I wish it was. I think I'm going to reach out to Mud Water and say, hey, if you want to sponsor my videos, I have a story here about coffee. Like, I get nauseous when I drink coffee. I feel sick to my stomach, and I have for a long time. It messes with me. And so I've been drinking mud water, and it's not coffee, it's mushrooms, and it kind of has like a chai flavor. I like it. This video is not sponsored by Mud Water. I wish it was. All right, let me take a look here. Let's see here. Hope y'all are staying warm. Da, 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 da. Okay. So the Kaladin guy is ripping people off. Hey, Jeff, we're not going to talk about Kaladin on the live stream. I mean, that's not what this topic is about. If you want to reach out to them, like, I'm not that manufacturer. So let's respectfully, like, let's not make a mess of the comments section about Kaladin. Let's just try to stay focused. And I understand that there's a lot of people that are upset about Kaladin and waiting on speakers. And my heart goes out to you. And I'm very frustrated about that. And I'm not saying you shouldn't talk about that. I'm saying you should, but I don't know if this is going to be the right video to be talking about that. You can email me or you can even call me. If you want to call me and we can talk, I'm happy to chat with you about it. And I feel your frustration, man. I really do. So yeah, let's try to move forward, stay on topic. Got a lot to talk about. All right. So we have an understanding of how I got started, subjective reviews. There was a pinpoint or a change or a shift where I started now bringing in objective data to help maybe support what it was that I was hearing. Let's pause. For me, from that day forward, even to this very day, the way that I think about a speaker review is it is a lot like a crime scene. It is. It's a lot like walking into a crime scene and there is stuff about that me as an investigator, I now need to look at and I need to go, okay, the door was busted. I was able to just walk right in. The door handle was broken. Okay, I noted that. Ooh, man, fingerprints. Don't touch anything. Be careful. I see some blood splatter going on. Here's our victim, and it is now my job to figure out what happened here. What's going on? And so, as I do that, the reality is that just a subjective look around probably isn't going to solve the crime. I might be able to get close. I might be able to make a guess like, okay, I've seen this kind of a thing before. I've seen enough broken doors in my life to tell you that this is probably what happened here. But I think and I feel that having some tools to now collect samples, to take a look, to collect fingerprints, to look at blood splatter and understand it, might be a good idea. Because then what my initial gut tells me, my best guess as to what might be going on here, I can now reinforce it with confidence. I can now say, I think I know. Not only I think I know what happened, but now I see evidence. I've collected evidence that tells me I might actually be right. So, if we take a look at these thumbnails of today's video, there's a couple of different examples on there. We've got the Kef R3s, which are actually a fine speaker. It's kind of ironic that they're on there. If Aaron watches this, Aaron from Aaron's audio corner, he's like, Ron's an idiot. Those speakers rock. They're fine. I have no issues with them. They just didn't blow my mind. And that crime scene was actually pretty clean. There was no mucking around. It's like, yeah, they're pretty good, when it comes to clips. And most horn speakers, there's been some JBLs that I've actually appreciated, but the original RP600M and then even the RP600M2, when I investigated that crime scene, I just tried to figure out, first of all, listening to the speaker, what is it that I'm not isn't isn't gelling with me? What is it about this speaker that I don't necessarily love? I'm going to try to figure it out. And I did my best to connect the dots, through measurements and, sound clips and all of these different things. And those are different pieces of evidence that I like to use as I investigate the crime scene. Is I have measurements, I have sound clips for you guys, and I have, of course, my subjective opinion. And then collectively, I'm hoping that I give this to you, and then you can make the decision. Like, okay, this is what he heard, this is what he doesn't like, and this is why he doesn't like it. Okay, great. With the example of the RP600M, that's kind of what happened with both the RP600M and the and Mark too, is that I just didn't love that particular speaker. There was nothing about it that brought me back to what started this, right? It didn't bring me back to like that joy point for me of like, man, this is something that I just want to keep listening to. We move on to the little triangles. The triangles. Those are $2,500 speakers, and for me, that's a chunk of change. I mean, that's not cheap. And with those particular speakers, they're a little bit of a tougher nut to crack, especially if we're talking about, not to go back to the clips, but like especially the RP600M. There's a dip in the response, and then you've got some lift at the top, and there's some evidence to suggest why I might not necessarily love that speaker. We move on to the Comets, the 40th anniversary, a little bit trickier because I couldn't really find anything that I saw in my measurements that would tell me for sure or give me great confidence that what I was hearing can be seen in a graph. I didn't I struggled through that one, and therefore I had to also rely on sound clips to say there's something about this tweeter that calls attention to itself. And it's kind of making me crazy because one of the things that brings me joy when I'm listening to loudspeakers is a speaker that can disappear and it doesn't call attention to itself. And if I have a speaker that it's like, there's a tweeter over here, it drives me insane. It drives me crazy. But to my point, the measurements with that particular speaker didn't really point to anything that was necessarily wrong. We move on to the platinums, the monoacoustic platinums. Even a more compelling example. Not one thing in those measurements. There isn't one thing that I could see or identify that would tell me that the female vocals, specifically the female vocals, male vocals were okay, but female vocals sounded very odd to me. Strange. Like there's something about the way a female sounds with those speakers that does not, to me, sound natural, right? And so there's my initial gut is saying something about these platinums, female vocals, doesn't sound right. And so the investigation begins. And when I investigated that speaker, I did a lot of stuff that wasn't even shown in the video because I felt like I'm kind of beaten up on this speaker a bit. And I knew that the manufacturer wasn't going to be in love with that video, but I also knew based on what we've talked about, that snag in the road a long time ago where I wasn't true to myself, that's never going to happen again. It's like I'm going to be true to myself, and I heard something in the female vocals with those speakers that I couldn't quite convey. I couldn't quite find or figure out in the measurements, not in the spectral decay, not in the horizontal axis, not in the vertical axis, not it. It's you're not going to see it, you know. For the most part, the measurements actually looked okay, and so I, of course, had to do some comparisons with sound clips. And it's like, okay, well, if I isolate this female vocal by itself, nothing else playing, and I play it in the platinums, and then I play it also in this speaker that I have that I feel like does, at least to me, portray a very natural sound. It was the LGK 2.4s. Let's compare the two and then let you guys decide. And then I gave that isolated female vocal back to you guys to listen to. And as you were listening to those vocals, you don't need to take my word for it. You can go and look yourself. People not even knowing that it was the LGK 2.4, like here's the GR research shill. Holy cow. They all like 90%, if not higher, probably 95% of the comments were like, without a doubt, without question, whatever this mystery speaker is, it was the 2.4, sounds more natural. And so there was something going on with the speaker that I didn't understand. And getting back to what I was suggesting at is that I tried some stuff to figure that out. I even thought, well, if I can't see it in the measurements, it might be some kind of a vibration. It might be like a resonance because these are aluminums, speakers are made out of metal and it's like stout and heavy, kind of like a Magico would be. Um, and I went and got moving blankets and I wrapped the speaker in moving blankets. It was absurd. Taped it off, tried to get it tight to the body, played it back, made a little bit of a difference. It wasn't night and day, but I still heard this thing that was making me completely crazy. And so, with all of these examples in this thumbnail, I felt that I feel like it's my job to try my best to describe what it is that I'm hearing as a reviewer. My subjective analysis. This is what I'm hearing and this is what I'm noticing. These are its strengths and these are its weaknesses. And then the second part of that is the investigation. I need to try to express, like, well, why? Now, with some of these examples, I simply failed because I still to this very day don't know for sure why the platinum sounds the way that it does, but I do know that it sounds the way that it does. And a lot of you folks that watch that video agree. So, getting to the gist of this, and we'll take another breather here in a second, is even with all of this being said, all of it, everything that I just tried to express to the best of my ability in a live stream, that does not mean that if you like any of these speakers or you love any of these speakers, that my findings or what I had to say in my review should change your opinion. It shouldn't. And there's going to be maybe some, like heavier objective reviewers out there that would disagree with me, like, nah, man, it needs to follow the Harmon curve. No, man, it needs to do this or that. And I don't feel that way. I think that if you find any loudspeaker, and I really don't care what it is, I don't even care, listen to me, if it's a Bluetooth speaker, a JBL, I don't know, I'm a Skull Candy Bluetooth speaker that you put on your desk and you love the way that thing sounds, that's great. No problem. And nothing that if I was to review that Skull Candy Bluetooth speaker and light it on fire in the review, that shouldn't change or rob you of your joy. It shouldn't. What I would hope that this community can perhaps learn from what I'm saying or take away from what I'm saying is maybe we can look at measurements a little bit different. That it's not about telling you what speaker you shouldn't like, but perhaps help you understand the speakers that you might like. Now, that's a very different thing. It might actually shift the narrative of it's not about what you don't like, but if you've tried enough speakers and you've heard the same things over and over again, and then here comes this clown, Ron from New Record Day, talking about soundstage and talking about things opening up in the sound field and talking about imaging and transparency and layering and 3D effects and things like that. And you're going, I want some of that. And I have these Clip Sharpie 600s and they don't do that. They actually sound, lively and exciting and they are dynamic and they're all these different things, but you know, they really don't open up in all that interesting of a way. And I want to understand, like, what the heck is this guy talking about? And so you might try a speaker that I've celebrated, right? That I've talked about as this particular speaker does open up in a very interesting way. And you might watch that review. You might actually purchase that speaker. And when you hear that it does indeed open up in an interesting way, you could take a look at the measurements and you could hear the way that I describe, like, what's going on, whether it's the spectral decay. And I think that's a good start. That's a big one of how fast is that speaker responding? How quick is that speaker responding? Is there, pardon me, any traces of stored energy that is leading to this? There's a tweeter over there. There's a tweeter over there. There's a tweeter over there. Because that's exactly what I've noticed happens is that when there's things that are lingering in the room longer than they ought to be, often it might be exactly that. And so I think that I think that there is a way for me to break bread with the Klipsch fans and, the Platamon fans and, the Triangle Comet fans. Like, I don't want you to feel like your speaker sucks after watching my review. If you love that speaker and you think that speaker is awesome, then that's great, man. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. At the same time, I hope that anybody that maybe has those speakers and they feel like they're lacking or they feel like they're not their cup of tea and they might align with what I consider my favorite flavor of hi-fi ice cream, that because of the evidence that I have collected and I've given back to you, that they might be able to find a better speaker for them. And so that is today's live stream. That's everything that I have, ultimately wanted to say here about this on the live stream. And again, I'm gonna have to piece this together in a more concrete, video and get that out to you guys and kind of express this in a more, a more in a better way. But hopefully this all makes sense. I'm gonna just take a moment and pause. I'm gonna drink some mud water, and then I'm going to open the floor. Let's talk. Let's see if you guys have any questions or thoughts about what I had to say. And let's see what you guys think. All right. Hey, by the way, thank you for the super chat. I really do appreciate that. It looks like it came in from YB. I don't SGD $5. I don't know what I don't know what that is, but I do appreciate it. Thank you. I really do appreciate it. All right. So here we go. Um, see if we got some questions. Yeah, it's strange. Both Jay and Zeos really love the Platimans. Yeah, they do. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. Like they very well might have been, hearing some things in that speaker that they just fell in love with, and that's okay. Like I've grown kind of tired of, this negativity, this negative connotation with measurements, that measurements are all bad and these guys are just a bunch of jerks, and some of them might be jerks, but I hope that you hear me, that I'm not your enemy and I'm not one of them. And I think that I need to do a better job of, let's not play the thumbnail game. Let's not make it look like I'm lighting a clip speaker on fire. That's a little bit over the top, Ron. Um, and I'm gonna do that. I think that we need kind of a refreshing shift in this industry, because here's the thing, and this I cannot express this enough. This is our community, all of ours. It's yours, it's mine. We all own it. And so what we do with it is entirely up to us. And if we want to bicker and fight and argue and, you know, cause a big scene and act like a bunch of Nancy's, do we really think that anybody that is not interested in hi-fi is going to want to join our community? Probably not. And so I hope this is disarming and that we can, start making some positive changes. So that's awesome. I'm perfectly I saw a lot of reviewers out there love the Platimans, and they very well might love the Platimans, and it's totally okay. They just weren't my cup of tea. There was something about the female vocals that I didn't necessarily love, and it doesn't mean that they suck. It doesn't mean that you're not going to love them. It just means this is what I investigated and what I found. And honestly, that's that. That's all that it means. So, Mike V is asking, Ron, have I ever listened to Omega speakers? They caught my eye, but I have never listened to them and not a lot of reviews on YouTube. Back in the day, I reached out to Omega a number of times because I was kind of curious about them. And I don't think that Omega sends a lot of stuff out for review. I don't think they do. Maybe it's just not a practice. I feel like I had one conversation or an email, and that was kind of the gist that I got is that, we don't really do that. Um, I would be totally open to checking them out. They do seem interesting, reasonably priced. Seems like a cool product. So, yeah. All right, let's take a look here. Don't pay attention to the trolls. 30-day in-home trial. Thanks for the reviews. They are entertaining. Hey, I appreciate that. Yeah, and that's another thing is, you know, um, that might be a good idea is if you're not certain about a particular speaker, maybe, a speaker that I've reviewed and it didn't turn out to be, you know, sunshine and rainbows in my review, but you're still interested in it. Exactly what Stay Brown is saying is if it has like a 30-day window, you should still try it out, man. Like you might actually still like the speaker or love the speaker. So yeah. MW says, I love my KEF R3 meta. Still agreed with most things you said. However, the R3 seemed to be very room dependent. A friend borrowed them in his room and is better treated, and they just felt flat and boring. You know what? That might be true. And considering the voicing on those speakers, it that very well could be the case. So I think that's a very valid point. And of course, that's a big piece of the investigation puzzle when it comes to my reviews is the room. Not everybody has a treated room, and I understand that. Um, I think that it's a powerful tool for me to kind of hear the speaker as it is without a massive influence from the room doing things that are difficult to predict. Um, so it's entirely possible that you're exactly right. Hobbs brings up a fantastic point. Could also be a synergy issue, hands down. Back when I did my dumb things that audiophiles believe, I almost threw in synergy, and I am glad that I didn't because at that time, I kind of thought it was BS. Like, come on, synergy. You guys sound like you're making up a bunch of words, but you know what? It's not BS. It's actually true. I've noticed now time and time again that some gear, some stuff that you put in front of a loudspeaker can shift and change things quite a bit. Now, will it fix like a legitimate issue and or a problem? No, but it can certainly finesse things and move things, paint, with a slightly different shade of color that you might find is a little bit prettier. And that might actually be the case. And so, yeah, Hobbs, thank you for bringing that up, man. I appreciate that. I think you're exactly right. Hector, thank you so much. We got a super chat, 4.99. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Thank you. All right, let's take a look here. Sonic Flare says, when measurements validate opinions, they are fantastic. When they do not, then we come up with all sorts of reasons why measurements don't really make sense. We just haven't discovered the right one. Yeah, Sonic Flare, it reminds me of something that Andrew Jones once said to me, and I think it is perfect. He said, "I never worry about measurements. I worry about whoever's talking about the measurements." And of course, that was in a conversation to me, and I think he was saying like, "You're an idiot, Ron. You don't know what you're talking about." Um, but I think it goes to show that you're right. It's like, yeah, when the measurements align with what, we like, then they're great. When they don't, it's like, oh man, that kind of sucks. You mean to tell me there's a massive phase shift with those RP600Ms? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. The mid-range sounds fine. It's like then the bickering can start. And I just really do genuinely hope, like in my heart, that this video might help. It might help people understand, like, man, I don't want to dog on any speakers, that you love. I don't. I'm still gonna investigate and I'm still gonna give my thoughts and my opinion. But if you like it, then you like it, and it's totally fine. All right. What are your thoughts on the importance of tube preamps? Why don't you review more of them? That's a good question. I actually love tube preamps. The preamp that I have been using for actually quite some time now is a Dodd Audio preamp, and these are, excuse me, pardon me, sorry about that. They're long out of production. Gary Dodd passed away a number of years ago. You can still find these used. They're a 12-volt battery powered tube preamp, and it has a 6H30 tube in there, and it's got variable gain on it. So you can do unity gain, you can do 3 decibels of gain or 6 decibels of gain. Gary even made some with 6 and 12 decibels of gain. I actually have 2 of these preamps. I kind of went a little bit crazy when I was, searching for these things, and uh, it's it's exactly what I want a tube preamp to do, which is mostly get out of the way. I want a preamp to mostly get out of the way. The Serene preamplifier, which is obviously a solid state preamp, that gets out of the way. That's how I hear it. It's kind of a window, right? A tube preamp, I kind of want it to get out of the way, but before it leaves, I want it to like leave some flowers for me, some pretty flowers to look at. And that's what I want a tube or tubes to do in a tube preamp is I'm already obsessed with soundstage. I'm already obsessed with imaging. I'm already, obsessed with the sound of the performance. Can those tubes do something to make that a little bit more interesting? And when a good tube preamp can do that, then it's magic. Why don't I talk about them more? That's a good question, and we should fix that. I would love to review more tube stuff. It would be a lot of fun. Yeah. Um, let's take a look here. Are you going to get the Bucart E50 speakers in for review? I did my top 10 favorite GR search speakers. I had to say it. I had to say it. I'm sorry because a lot of people freaked out. My top 10 favorite speakers of all time. And the Bucarts did make the list. The S400 Mark IIs and Mads, Mods, whatever. He's got a cool name. I like calling him Mads because I think it's just an awesome name, but I think it's Moz. He was very, very sweet and kind in the comments, and he even reached out to me. And we were actually talking about the E50s, and it looks like that is going to happen. There's a lot of work that's going into those cabinets. I mean, they're getting real artisan over at Bucart Audio, and that's awesome. That's exciting. But yeah, that is going to happen. And I would be excited and thrilled to check those out. I really like what Bucart is doing. And I think that they're doing a phenomenal job across the board. Social Club Sound says, I try to remind people that everyone hears slightly differently. Just because speakers don't work for you doesn't mean they won't work for other people. Why didn't I just say that? And I could have ended this entire live stream like 42 minutes ago. That's exactly right. Harry VA says, one thing to consider is relative hearing loss, ear and head shape, listening distance, and conditioning. If you listen to AMTs all the time, silk and aluminum tweeters can sound dull. There you go. I think that's reasonable. I do think that we all obviously hear different. Our ear condition is going to be different from one person to the next. Here I am in my mid 40s, and unfortunately I can hear some changes, or I can't hear some changes. It's like that top end, I think it's slowly starting to peel away, which is unfortunate. It happens to everybody. There's no getting around it. But you're right. Yeah. Possible Audio says, we don't want to act like a bunch of Karens. I can deal with Nancy all day long. All the best to you, New Record Day. I completely agree, man. I completely agree, and I feel like I can do a better job in my part of chilling out with some of the thumbnails and softening the blow with my findings, trying to remind myself that just because I don't necessarily like the speaker, that it doesn't mean that somebody else or many other people might actually love the speaker. And I have to remember that. And I'm going to do a better job at that. So thank you. Sonic Flare says also get a pair of AirPods Pro 2, measure your hearing, and post the results. Now that would be interesting. I didn't even realize that you could do. Is that an app or is it built into the AirPods? I I washed my AirPods in the laundry, and they don't sound very good anymore. I got to get another pair of them. All right. And the room is super important. The most overlooked part of hi-fi. I've talked about that endlessly. I completely agree with you. But I think that that does, in light of this conversation, also bring up that not everybody can have a fancy pants room, and not everybody can even treat their room. And so, you know, I don't ever want to stroll in on a high horse making anybody feel just because this is my environment that you have to have this environment to enjoy hi-fi. That is a load. That is not true. Um, and to prove that, well, I haven't always had this and I've always enjoyed hi-fi. I've enjoyed hi-fi back when I was on Boise. I mean, that's like, gosh, 6 or 7 years ago. The amount of room mode issues that I had in that room are, if you guys only knew, oh my gosh, all of my initial reviews, you'd be like, this guy, he wasn't hearing those speakers at all. I want to say that I think it was around 30 hertz, maybe 40 hertz. I think I was up like plus 16 decibels. Monster. So here I am talking about Sabrina, the Wilson Audio Sabrina. That was in that house. I was like, oh, this bass is just so amazing. It's like, well, yeah, dude, you've got freaking plus 16 decibels of room gain at 40 decibels. Of course, you're hearing crazy bass. So you're exactly right. Let's take a look here. Measurements should start with your own ears first. Yeah, I think that your ears should be the very first thing that helps you understand and lock on to your level of joy. As my good buddy, Cheap Audio Man says, like fill your soul with happiness. Man, I love that guy, and I've always loved him, and I appreciate that aspect of, man. Like, can we all just relax a second and stop freaking out about all of these nitty-gritty details and measurements and things like that. If your ears are telling you that you like I wish I had a cheap amp right now, a cheap little class D amp or whatever it is, a Bluetooth speaker or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. There's your first measurement, and it's the one that matters the most. Do you find joy listening to these speakers or this system? And can you somehow understand, like, what it is about it? Here's like a key thing. Michael, the Greek audio geek, he's a horn guy. And when he came out here and he listened to Aria and he's hanging out, super great guy. I really like him a lot. And I know that he's listening. He's got great ears. But here I am, like, rubbing shoulders with him, like, you like horns? What's wrong with your ears? And he's like, able to communicate it as there's a presence and there's this liveliness and this firecracker dynamics, and that's his dragon. That's the dragon that he's chasing. I'm not. I'm not as much. It's like, I want refinement. I want, a sense of ease. And at the same time, I want a lot of detail and holographic information. It's like we're we can break bread. It's like you're going in this direction, I'm going in that direction, and that's totally okay. Um, Active speakers seem to be on the rise. Techniques, triangle, KEF, etc., etc. Any plans to do more with active speaker reviews? Yes. I actually have a pair of the Bucart anniversary speakers over here. I've had them for way too long, and it's embarrassing how long that I've had them, but I've had so many projects that were time sensitive that I had to knock out. I'm I'm going to give those a go. And Moz has told me he's a little bit worried and concerned that I'm not going to be in love with those, especially in this room. They're not made to, they don't have the headroom to play in a room like this, according to him. What he doesn't know is I don't crank it. You know, I want to keep my ears in check. So 70 dB up to 80 dB is fine. And even if I have to set a desk out there and do like some near field listening with them, fine. That's what I'm going to do. And I'll review those in that type of a context. So, yeah. So the anniversaries, they're cool. They have like a little thumb drive with master tunings that come with it, and I think it's a brilliant idea. If you're going to go active, why not have a bunch of different tunings for different scenarios? Are the speakers close against the wall? Do you pull them 260 feet out into the room like Ron does? What are you trying to accomplish? Well, just plug in a certain master tuning and off you go to the races. I think that's freaking awesome. So, yeah. John Shepler in the house. John, good to see you, man. Room gear setup and ears are all different, and in your room is the only way to truly judge, no matter what others think. There you go. John said it. I agree. What will be the meaningful upgrade for KEF R3 paired with H390? I'm not really sure what you're asking. If you can ask that question in a different way, I'm not the mud water. This video is sponsored by Mud Water. It's not sponsored by Mud Water. I'm gonna get myself in trouble with that. I don't know what you mean by that. All right, let's take a look here. Peter, first name, says, I'm trying to figure out why my laptops disconnect from my Denon AVR. Spotify and YouTube Music will only stay connecting for 10 minutes at a time using HDMI, driving me nuts. Man, I don't mess with any of that kind of stuff. I'm more of just like a old grumpy audiophile that's like HDMI, AV receiver. No, that's not the right that's not the right way to listen to music, son. You need some tubes and some single-ended RCA cables, HDMI cable, you know. So I wish I could help you. I don't have a clue what's going on there, man. And I'm not going to try and make up an answer just to try to look smart on a live stream. I don't know. Let's take a look here. Are you going to review the Bucar E50 speakers? It looks like I am. I don't know when I am, but it looks like I am. All right, here we go. Oh, holy cow. Look at this. Cheap Audio Man is in here. I just saw your super chat, Randy. Dude, good to have you in here. I appreciate that, my friend. Randy's the best. Randy is the best. I have appreciated that guy since day one. The moment that he Polk speaker off of a desk, I was like, I'm riding with this guy for life. It was so funny. It was like speaker Saturday speaker shootout. Oh, those were the days. Oh my goodness sakes. All right, let's take a look here. Okay, let's see here. Andrew Jones ain't a fan of that JIRA research dude, question mark. Andrew Jones is a very reasonable human being. I don't think that Andrew Jones thinks like that. I remember a long time ago, it was such an interesting commentary ages ago. We're going back to the archives. Only the you know, the collectors of New Record Day videos would even know what I'm talking about. But when the Bucart, when Bucart, when the ELAC debut came out, which was a fantastic speaker, nothing wrong with it. Danny did a modification to it, you know. So here's Danny with his speaker mods, and he sent me the modified speaker debut to review. And part of his modification was removing the beauty ring. And so he took what was a really pretty speaker and he made it really ugly. And when I went to talk about that particular modified speaker and unpack my thoughts about it, I was like, and I think a lot of people feel this way about GR research, and it's totally understandable. And it might seem strange that I'm going to talk about it like this. 'Cause you're like, I thought this guy was a GR research shill. Um, it, I was so confused why anybody in the world would take their debut, pull off the beauty rings, and make it look ugly, and then be like, "Well, it sounds good." I mean, it was just strange to me, and maybe there's some folks out there that wouldn't care. They'd be like, "Yeah, I don't care about the beauty rings. I just want it to sound better," and that's perfectly fine, but, you know, when when that video hit, there was a lot of back and forth between Andrew and Danny on the Audio Circle forums, and I watched it and popcorn out. I was like, "Dang, we got 2 guys that are kind of, going back and forth." And I will tell you, that was a very respectful and considerate conversation between Andrew and Danny. They didn't agree on everything and they didn't see eye to eye on everything. And there was a lot of different things talked about. But knowing both Andrew and Danny, I don't think that there's like bad blood or ill feelings from either of those guys. I think they would be able to disagree at times, and I think that they would be able to do that, showing some respect. That's my opinion about that. All right, another question: are you going to review the Bucar E50 speakers? Yes. Okay. Gadget Dad, you're starting to spam, buddy. Yes, I think I am. I don't know when. So hopefully you can hear me. Yes. All right. A lot of people miss out on power conditioning, dedicated installation cable, power filters such as ISO Tech make all the difference. That's good. That's fantastic. Scott Monroe, Ron, a lot of people order Caledons based on your November 2023 review, me included. I received mine after 13 months wait, and they are spectacular speakers. The product rollout was a disaster. Yeah, it was. And now that what I had to say in this live stream is done, we can shift and I can talk a little bit about this. I feel horrible about how that went. It bothers me. In fact, I've actually unlisted that video. And I even unlisted the following video where I use the Caledons with the Electrocompoing A ECI 80D. I didn't delete the videos, but you won't find them publicly. And a large part of that is a lot of you guys are frustrated, and I am frustrated for you. But at the same time, I don't want to ignore it. And I want to show some responsibility and remind you guys that, hey, there's only so much that I can do to help with that situation, but I will help as much as I possibly can. The last that I have heard from Clayton is that production has turned around. I do know that if you go to the Caledon or the Clayton Shaw Audio Acoustic Labs or Audio Lab, I'm getting jumbled here. Go to the Caledon website. If somebody can post the website, he has a forum, and I think that he has a list of production of like what speakers are going out and names on there. You guys can follow up with him. I don't have anything to do with the manufacturing, and there was never a financial gain for me in any of that. I was enthusiastic about the speaker. I celebrated the speaker, and as Scott said, the manufacturing and the rollout was a disaster. And I hope that it's no longer a disaster. So hopefully that kind of clears things up. I also know, and I should mention because I said I'm going to help you as much as I can, and this might be helpful, is that the speaker has changed a little bit, or maybe a lot. I don't know. The crossover has changed. She's made some adjustments to the crossover. The baffles have changed. It's now thicker. And so there are some refinements with Caledon. And I think that part of those refinements, especially with the baffles, is that production was at a halt. And now with these new baffles that happen to be thicker, and from the pictures that I've seen, they actually look quite nice, better, in my opinion. Um, that perhaps the production will speed up. And I hope that is the case, because there is nobody on this planet that wants more than for you guys to experience what I experienced when I heard those speakers. That's what I want, and I hope that happens. Hopefully that helps. All right. S400 Mark II, didn't Danny do the crossover for those? No, I don't think that Danny did the crossover for those. I don't think that is true. Scott Monroe, I bought a pair of Verum ones via Danny Ritchie, placed the order and forgot about it. I was surprised when they showed up, but very nice headphones. I agree. Yeah, they are nice. Stay Brown says, is it Synergy? I have a Modrite PH9 for over a year now that I have never enjoyed. I did change from an audio research PH8 and my speakers from KLH Model 5 to Tannoy Eaton. I love the Modrite PH9, the 9.0. So I don't know what you're not hearing or what you don't like about it, but that is a phono preamp that I adore. Excuse me. All right, let's take a look here, kind of catch up. A room just for fancy pants. Wow. Yep. Yep. Fancy pants rooms, listening rooms. Does your wife, here we go. Mike is asking, does your wife ever listen to whatever system you have set up in your shed? My wife makes me crazy when it comes to hi-fi. She is the best thing that has ever happened to me, make no mistake. But from day one, if I'm like, honey, you got to hear this, sit down. And you know how it goes. You've taken up the sweet spot, but then you get up and you move for your better half to take the sweet spot. And what does she do? She sits on the side of the couch and she's like, yeah, go ahead and play it. I'm like, no, honey, you got to sit right here. It's like, not just play the song. Like, just what I'm making dinner. What do you want? What do you want from me? And I'm like, no, you can't listen over there. That's going to be a mess. With that being said, my sweet wife does a lot of embroidery and she does shows and a lot of really, really cool designs. And every now and then she'll come in the sound shed and I'll give her a break and she'll turn on some music, Taylor Swift, and she'll sit right here and music will be playing. But she is not sitting in the right seat and it's disgusting. All jokes. It's all jokes. She's great. But yeah, that's how it goes. Mike V says, Ron, how does one go about getting a sound shed without getting a divorce? I haven't figured out how to have my cake and eat it too. My guess would be to start up a channel and get a little bit of income going. And, if there's enough there for it to make sense, then man, count your blessings. It got to a point with Sarah after, almost an entire decade of taking up a living room in every house that we've been in and making it an acoustically treated room. She was like, honey, can you just go and build like a listening room? And I was like, you bet your ass I can. I was like, it's about dang time, woman. It's like, yes, I can do that. And it's been a blessing. It's been incredible. So how can you do it without getting a divorce? I tip my hat to you and I wish you the best. At 69 years old, my top end is on its way down, is way down, and tinnitus or tinnitus. I don't know how to say it. I think it's tinnitus. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that, man. Something about our audio memory makes certain speakers sound better than others despite the measurements. That very well might be true. That might be true. Maybe. Let's see here. John Callison says, I have had people love my Klipsch and Tectons ads and Macintosh. People all here sound differently. I have friends that think my Deftex are better than, say, my La Scala or Tectons. There you go. Yeah. Different people will latch on to something differently and they're hearing something differently, and that's perfectly fine. It's totally valid. There's nothing wrong with it. All right, let's see here. Sorry, this thing just jumped on me. I got to back up. Sorry about this, guys. All right, John Shepler, we have Hi-Fi Royalty, Randy in the house. Folks, yeah, Mr. Cheap Audio Man, the man himself, the one and only. I'm sitting here and having a cup of coffee. All is good. That's fantastic. Do you still have the Concept 300 bookshelf speakers? Pick them up for a new half price. They sound great. No, I do not. I like the 500s more. The Concept 500s I thought were a little bit better than the 300s, especially in the mid bass. But yeah, the 300s were no slouch. I mean, they were great. Um, Maybe Moz has sent you a custom master tuning for a big ass shed. Oh, that's funny. I should do that. Be like, yeah, send me a master tuning for my shed. Why not? Maxell says, Ron, my favorite review you did was a long time ago when your wife was acting like a special agent delivering your high fidelity cables in a hard shell case. Very clever and funny. Oh my gosh, we had so much fun back then. Oh, we did a lot of crazy stuff. Oh man, it feels like just a different life ago when I was doing skits. I was, it was ridiculous. Oh my goodness sakes. Cheap Audio Man is one of my favorites, also, as he should be. Danny and Aaron would be better. Um, Yeah, Aaron's great. You are not serious. Blood splatter. Go Dexter, go. You are not serious. And your name's Snoopy Boot. Let's see here. Ron and Danny sitting in a tree. Yep, yep, probably. Here we go. Harry VA, hot take. Speakers that don't sound good at low levels are nonsense. Any speakers that need to go above 78 to 80 decibel average to sound optimal may already be causing resonances in untreated rooms, thus useless. You know, Harry, that's fine that you feel that way, but for some folks, they might feel different. And, you got to just be mindful of that. But I appreciate you sharing your thoughts, man. Joe says, I love active speakers. 50 years ago, I came across three models made by Philips. One was tramp, maybe triamplified, and two were biamped. They were not loud, but had a great sound. That's awesome. To be honest, I have never heard a bad speaker provided it was used in its context and ability. To be honest, I have never heard a bad speaker provided it was used in its context and ability. There you go. Tall Paul says, blah, 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 bye. See you later, Tall Paul. You have yourself a good one, buddy. Robert Hyde, listening above 80 dB just isn't relaxing. Man, I gotta say, I agree with you, Robert. And I think that a lot of folks don't realize how loud how they think they're listening a lot louder than they actually are. I think that's probably true. I've always wanted to do a video, like a practical guide or a practical use case of volume and show examples of like how loud that we're actually listening and how loud we think we're listening. Cause, I get comments all the time of like, hey man, what speakers can I blast up to 100 dB? And I'm like, not a lot without distortion, not a ton of them, you know? Yeah, Scott Monroe says, I've been tracking Caledon production updates. Appears about 3 pairs a week are being made and shipped. All right, there we go. Thank you for checking on that, Scott. I appreciate that. MAF says, I think that Clayton feels just as bad about the extensive delays. I've appreciated his level of responsiveness and with some patience and understanding. I can't wait to get mine. That is great to hear. Do you think that plugging any bass reflex speakers with supplied bungs is a better option if speakers are near the front walls? Good question. Will you get better integration in a small room, especially with powered subs all day long? Yes, 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 yes. I wish more than anything that every single manufacturer that makes a ported speaker would give you port plugs for that exact reason. If you find that, you've got close wall proximity and things sound boomy, plug those ports, man. And I can promise you, you will have far better integration, with doing that. That's a great question. And I enthusiastically say yes. I'm on pace to receive my Caledons about 14 months after ordering them, so I've had to be very patient. Lucky for me, I am, and I have deep appreciation and I have a deep appreciation for quality. That's fantastic. I hope you like them. All right. Let's see here. Mm. Hobbs says Danny did design a crossover for an early prototype of the Mark II, but not the final design. There we go. That's from Hobbs. Hobbs works for Danny, so he would be the authority in that. So it sounds like there was some design work done, but that wasn't the final offering that we are hearing out of the almighty S400 Mark II. All right, let's see here. Phil Grace. Hi, Ron. Hello, Phil. Good to see you, man. Uh, it, we've got somebody asking, is that a photo of you and the wife on the door? No, this is Sarah's grandparents, Grandpa Jay and Georgia, who my daughter Georgia is named after. They passed away not too long ago with COVID complications, and I miss them dearly. They're incredible people, unbelievable. I miss them a lot. Super supportive. Thank you. Um, Speaking of not sitting in the sweet spot of the speakers you've heard, which one had the biggest sweet spot? The biggest sweet spot that I've ever heard. Gosh, man, I'm drawing a freaking blank right now. Hmm. I'd have to think about that, Mike. I kind of feel like you caught me off guard there. Um, I hate to plug a speaker that I'm getting excited about, but with not Aria, we're gonna rename it. We got a really cool conversation coming up. We're gonna be talking about trademarks and stuff with somebody that knows what the heck they're talking about. Um, but one of the things about Aria, we'll just use it for this conversation, is that you can really separate those speakers quite a bit more than you typically can. And the center image does not fall apart. It actually stays intact. And I've noticed with those speakers, almost despite where you decide to put them, as long as they're pulled out into the room, that audiophiles, it's like if we can't lock on, we're doing this kind of a thing. That doesn't happen with Aria. It just seems like no matter what, we got something to work with. But that's not to say that it's it's like unnatural sounding. It's not like the vocalist is larger than life. I've noticed that with Magnapans, and I want to be careful here, not to say that Magnapans have a wide sweet spot. They don't. Actually, when you listen to a Magnapan, you got to be like here. But I've noticed that sometimes vocals can sound real big, almost like a football. It's like that's a big vocal. That's not what I'm talking about with Aria. It sounds real, but it doesn't shift or change as you move. So that is one speaker that has impressed me in that regard. John Scheffler says, he's messing with me. John, I don't even want to read this. When you start doing more IEM reviews, now you have the sound shed for testing. Oh, John, you silly guy. Oh, Ron at YouTube least how many subscribers needed for independent reviewer? A lot. A lot. You know, I don't think that it would be appropriate for me to get into this. I think that I will say you guys would be very surprised at 100,000 subscribers. Thanks to you guys and the amount of work that I've done, I don't make a lot of money doing this. Not a lot. I think you would actually be shocked. Like, oh my goodness sakes, how do you get by? Sarah and I, we try to be humble and we live humbly. We take care of the kids. We prioritize money, and we try to live below our means. We do the best that we can. But man, we ain't driving around in fancy cars. We don't have fancy phones or anything like that. So, it, it it can be done. It has been done. It's been done well. There's, folks out there that are very successful, and I want to be more successful at this. And so with that comes a responsibility of getting out more content and then trying to cast a bigger net, while at the same time being true to myself. I never I want to be careful about how I say this and be respectful. I never ever want to move in the direction of get this on Amazon, get this on Amazon. I don't like that. It bothers me. I want to avoid that at all cost. In the in the situations where I do find something that has affiliate links or whatever, and it's a way to bring in some money that helps. Patreon helps. Um, and that's something that I'm dedicated to fixing. I have been horrible at Patreon for a long time. And for the folks that have hung with me from the very beginning, they deserve a lot more from me. And so that's something I'm going to be concentrating on like now. And so, as you can see by the weekly schedule this week and videos coming out, it's like, wow, there seems to be like a shift. Like Ron's going to start, getting stuff out more. I am, and that will include paying more attention to Patreon, but it's tough, man. It's you don't make as much money doing this unless you're really working your butt off, so it's not so easy. The Kaladins, JR Research, and Bucarts are all great speakers. I agree with that. Anyone having trouble with tinnitus, try never using Q-tips. Made a huge difference for me. I stay away from Q-tips, man. Phil Gray said, I noticed you mentioned Ryan speakers on your honorable list. I don't remember you reviewing that. They are absolutely brilliant. Brilliant. Are they still in business? Can you tell us more? Yeah, the R610s. I got to be honest. I don't think they belonged on the honorable list. I think they actually belonged higher on the list. That list was a lot trickier to put together than I thought. And I think that some of the backlash that I got from folks thought that it was the 10 best speakers that I've ever reviewed. Best. It wasn't. It was my favorite. And so there's going to be bias involved of sentimental reasons or certain other things about what makes that speaker my favorite of why they ranked the way that they did. So with that being said, the R610s, those are a phenomenal speaker. They're one of the very first speakers that, oh, hold on. I'm getting dinged here. I forgot to put do not disturb. They're one of the first speakers that I heard on my channel that literally did nothing wrong. It was like they did nothing about that speaker. I couldn't find a fault for what I'm listening for and what I like. I couldn't find one little wart. I was like, dang, man, these don't do anything wrong. Great, phenomenal speaker. Todd and Trevor Ryan, great guys. They are still in business. I think you can go to ryanspeakers.com. At least last time I checked, they're still in business. They're great. All right, let's take a look here. What about DDC controversies? Cheap Audio Man. I'm glad they're asking Cheap Audio Man because I still don't get DDCs. I just don't. What do you guys think about a DDC? Do you need one? Do we care? We need to start putting tubes in DDCs and then I'll care. Oh my goodness sakes. Let's see if I've got any other questions in here. Oh, hold on a second. This kind of just blew up on me. Give me a second. Let me catch up. Looks like we're getting close to the bottom of the list here. All right, here we go. This is kind of a cool comment to highlight. My favorite listening setup is my desk, Near Field Audio Engine 5 plus a shit Modi and a rhythmic sub. Killer at 3 feet. That's awesome. Near Field is fun, man. I was thinking I kind of want to build like the ultimate near field desktop type situation and do that in the shed and have some fun with it. I'm right there with you, man. If you can get within, close proximity of the speaker and you're fortunate enough to get away from the walls, like near field can do some incredible things. There's no doubt about that. Snoopy Boobs says, you as an investigator, laughable. Now, I think Snoopy Boobs has said some pretty mean things in the comments section, so I think I'm going to go ahead and put him in timeout just for a little while here. Because we're trying to have a positive conversation here, Snoopy Boobs. No reason to be mean. Ron, have you had a chance to play around with any power conditioners? Wondering if you have any thoughts on a top-notch recommendation for one. I have. Um, I have the Puritan right here. It's a Spatial Audio's Puritan. I need to ship this back to them. Back to them. I keep forgetting. I'll do that today. I probably won't do it today. I'll do it soon. I tried it and I actually blew a fuse in the amp the first time that I used it. I don't know why that happened. It was weird. I was using the Galleon TS120 and I was listening to music and I was like trying to, sink my teeth into this Puritan and find out whether it's doing a dang thing. And I start, turning the volume up and it wasn't crazy loud. There wasn't anything crazy going on. And poof, I was like, oh, where did everything go? Amp shut off, everything turned off, and the fuse tripped. And that was strange. And I don't know why that happened. I guess I could still investigate it, but I don't want to now. It's like, well, that's kind of a bummer. Like, why would it do that? And so I get a little bit nervous when a device like that causes that kind of a problem. It's like, huh, that should not. I don't think that should have happened. That's about as far as I've got with the Puritan. There are some other conditioners that I've tried, some iFi, I forget what they are. iFi power bars. I've got them plugged in over here that do they make a difference? Yeah. In the sound shed, I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical that they're doing much for me. It's possible they are, and maybe I need to investigate a little bit more. But I built this shed. I did the electrical myself, and it is all tied to its own meter. It's not connected to the house, and so everything is isolated. And I ran direct lines to every single outlet in here, and so a lot of effort was put in thinking about power in the sound shed, and I just don't think that I have a whole lot of power problems. I don't think that I do, but that's not to say that somebody in New York or, somebody in some type of a complex building or an apartment building or a condo, lots of shared stuff, a lot of stuff being turned on and off that you may or may not, may or may not benefit from power conditioning. Tony, thank you so much. I appreciate the super chat. My blown Serwin Vegas do suck. You don't. Thank you. Oh, that's funny. Pock says, not that speakers sound bad at low levels. It's just they sound better once a certain level is reached, especially with bass. Even speakers that have good low end sound need some air movement. I kind of understand what you're saying. Back in the 70s, the golden era of hi-fi, a lot of these silver face beauties that we saw back then, they would always have that loudness button. And so at low levels, you would click the loudness button and that lifts the bottom and the top end. And that's just to help to compensate for lower levels. So I think you could very well be right with that statement. I think that's entirely true. On loudness, I went for my new Led Zepp movie, Becoming Led Zeppelin, at the IMAX. I has great archive performances. It has great archive performances during the last song. I started my phone SPL meter and max levels limited to 89 decibels. Yeah, that's probably like at the extreme for me these days. If I'm listening to something, like reaching that high on peaks is probably pushing it. I just don't care to crank things all that much. Why do so many audio enthusiasts insist on buying a single huge sub instead of purchasing subs in pairs? I don't know why. And we need to fix that. We need to fix that. I completely hear you, man. I think that unless we're talking about, really bad subs, like crappy subs, but like you get two decent subs instead of one big massive sub for me and for what I'm listening for and what I'm going for. The two subs will win 100% of the time. It will sound more even. It'll be harder to localize where bass is coming from. You have more flexibility with placement and getting them out on the dance floor to create soundstage and tension. If you've never tried this with two subs, you ought to do it. Place them just to the left and right side of you. I know it sounds insane, and have them facing this way into the room with the woofers. That's a weird gesture. Don't ever do that again. And try it. Get them as low as you can. Blend them with your mains that are out there and see what happens. It might not work. It might work. Excuse me. In my room, I have these Arendelle subs that I wish I could steal. I have to give them back eventually, but I'm just gonna hang on to them as long as I possibly can. That's what I do in here. So I have open baffle subs in the front, and then I have these Arendelle subs on the side, and I just augment the lowest of the lows. They're crossed to like 30 hertz, so really, really low stuff. Phenomenal. It's so much fun. It's great. Yeah. True voice of reason. Hey, welcome to the live stream, my man. Missing your in-laws. I know that feeling all too well. I miss my in-laws and everything we did together, even after they moved 1,800 miles away. Yep. Yep. Absolutely, man. Let's see here. Will area come with grills? Unfortunately, they won't. And I'm saying unfortunately because I kind of wish they would. Danny is calling the shots on manufacturing, and I don't want to involve myself too much into that. It's like I want him to kind of make the decisions and the calls on all that kind of stuff. I don't want to be financially interested in any of that kind of stuff, but I did mention it. I was like, I think it would be nice if we had magnetic grills for practical reasons. And it was shut down pretty quick by Danny. He's like, it costs a lot more than you think. It's like this is going to add to the price, and we're not going to do it. And so, Aria will not come with grills as of right now. As of today, it's not going to happen. Oh, this reminds me, and thank you for bringing this up. Rothgar the Viking. Danny did say that they might consider covers, and hopefully that's at least something, some kind of a cover, something. Hopefully we'll figure something out, because I'm coming at this from the angle of a dad, and Danny is also a dad, but his kids are long gone, and they're not poking woofers. My kids are poking woofers. Elliot, oh man, that kid, it's like, dude, I will cut your fingers off, boy. I'm not going to cut his fingers off. So yeah, something that would be a good idea. What do you think of when reviewing the speakers? Do it with both slight. Hold on. What do you think of when reviewing the speakers? Do it with both slightly warm and also more exact sounding amps. I've heard this makes speakers sound fair to excellent. You will definitely want to tune in, TSR, to my review of the Aegers this week. That's going to be the Frequency Friday episode. I actually talk about that. I actually talk about that specific scenario. So tune in. I talk about that. And the answer is, if you don't want to watch the video, the answer is yes. That is intelligent system pairing, is if you have something with a little bit more lift and then you have a warmer sounding speaker, amplifier, you marry the two. And sometimes the kids turn out great. Sometimes they poke woofers, and then you just put that kid on Facebook Marketplace, and you move on, and you don't tell the wife about it. All right, here we go. Let's see here. Let me just check my timing here. Okay, I promised my wife that I would finish at noon. It's now noon. We've been talking for a while. It's been an hour and a half. I don't want to blow off a lot of these questions. So what I will do is I'll just see if there's anything in here that really stands out as something I really ought to answer. Mike V, Aria's targeted price is $3,500. Has a lot of serious bookshelf competition, ATC, Harbeth, etc. Would love Randy style shootout with sound clips. Yeah, I agree. And I want to say something about Aria that falls in line with this video. That speaker is not going to be for everybody. It's not. And I would not at all be surprised if Aria was heard and even put on the bench over at Aaron, from Aaron's Audio Corner, using the Clipple and stuff. That there are some measurements, some of the tests in there where Aria would not do so well. One of those being compression tests, volume, higher volumes. I don't think that Aria is going to come out, looking like a total BA in that situation. There also is going to be that nuance of these speakers are truly designed to be pulled deep into the room or as deep as possible. 3 feet is the minimum. And as soon as you do that, your bottom end drops 50 hertz. So, you put that up against something like an S400 Mark II, that S400 II would be like, bam, get out of here, Aria. Get out of here with that nonsense. It'll just clobber it with deep bass. The CSS, uh, the Crichtons, or I think it's Crichtons. Yeah, 1TDX Crichtons. Same situation. Smack them around. The Encores, smack them around with deep bass. So there's some nuances with that speaker of this is more of, okay, I understand that I need subs. I've got to blend in the subs. Hopefully you consider open baffle subs, something like that I love because I think that it helps with what we're going for with that speaker, sound stage and imaging and things like that. Fast, quick to respond, quick to resolve, all of those types of things. All right. But yeah, short of it is, yeah, I think that a shootout would be a lot of fun. And if I do that, I give you my word, I will be as fair as I possibly can. And I will tell you when something is better than Aria and why it's better. And I will also say when I think Aria is better than said speaker and why. I'll just tell it like it is. Ron, I am just a regular guy, but I love music. Invite me over so I can listen at the sound shed. I am probably less busy than you are, so anytime you're available. Carl S., email me, ron@newrecordday.com. We'll get you on the schedule. Come on down. You can hang out here I was going to say for as long as you want, but I'm not sure if my wife would love that. You can't live here. You will have to leave eventually, but you can certainly hang out, and I think you would love it. It'll be a lot of fun. Let's take a look here. Harry VA, New Record Day. Any experience with suspending subwoofers from the ceiling? Buddy of mine has a tiny listening bar, though can only place it in a corner of the room. Not ideal to bass corner buildup. I've never done that. Suspending it from the ceiling. Okay. From an acoustics standpoint, and I feel like I can kind of speak to this a little bit. I do see a couple of things that might show up that would cause some problems. How you suspend that subwoofer is going to definitely have an impact on the interaction of the sub to the rest of the room, right? You have a heavy subwoofer that is now hanging from something. Well, hanging from something as that subwoofer plays, sound pressure, vibrations are going to now bleed into that room. Tricky. I think it could be done. I don't know exactly how I would do it. I mean, obviously, if we're talking about like a live stadium, there's subwoofers suspended, right? And, it's all part of that experience. Mimicking that, or looking at how that is done might be a step in the right direction. But is it ideal? Probably not. Probably not ideal. If it's the only thing you can do, I think it could be done, but I think that it's going to be, you got a challenge on your hands. If Danny pulls off beauty rings for sound improvement, grills would be a big no. That is true. Oh my goodness sakes. Let's see here. Danny's kids are all grown. Let's see if there's anything else that's really jumping out here. Okay, I'm down to the bottom here. Happy wife, happy life. That is correct. Thanks, Ron. All right. Last and final chances. Any other big questions? I wonder where Snoopy Boobs. We got to take a guy named Snoopy Boobs seriously. I wonder where he went. All right. Any other questions here, folks? Hopefully, what I had to say about your speakers might not suck, despite what I have to say. And don't ever let me or any other reviewer make you feel bad about liking a speaker, no matter what. If you like it, and it's okay. That's the point of the entire live stream. And I will do a better job of not playing the thumbnail game and not coming across like an ass because I think that I have in the past, and I want to do a better job. All right, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. You guys are the best. You guys are awesome. Friday, Ager review, and then Sunday, a review. Hopefully, answering the question: what the heck does a? I thought I had it. Yeah, I don't have it on the desk anymore. Here's the packaging: a $16,500 phono cartridge. What does this sound like? I'm curious. I obviously can't buy that. I'm nervous as heck to even use it. What does it sound like? So, Friday, Sunday, that's the schedule. For all my patrons that are going to be hearing this, you've got some good news coming your way. You're going to like it. All right. Take care, you guys.